So I teach an honors neuroanatomy course, and one of the goals that I have for my students is to be able to visualize and understand brain structures in 3 dimensions. And one of the reasons this is important for students is that many of them want to be doctors, and in order to interpret brain scans that you see, you have to understand what the 3D relationships are and the shapes are of particular structures, and this would help you, for example, localize where a tumor is or some other type of injury. One of the things that my students struggle with is that most of our teaching materials are in 2 dimensions. So these will be things like books or slides or what have you, and it can be very difficult for a novice to extrapolate from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions in order to understand the structures of things in the brain or understand how they're related to one another. So there are 3D models of the brain that are available, but I thought, what if instead of having my students just look at these, they were able to also design them themselves? And this allows them to do 2 different things. First of all, they get to learn the neuroanatomy, learn about the shapes of brain structures and how they're related to one another. But they also get to learn about 3D modeling and 3D printing technology. And these are technologies that are becoming used more and more in research and in medicine and in industry. So this way they get to learn about these techniques, at least at a very basic level. So now in the spring of 2019, I'm using this project for the 4th time in my classes. And what I do is I ask students to decide on a brain structure or a group of structures that they'd like to model. And then I have them make measurements using 2D images, things like brain scans or brain atlases. And then they use those measurements to put them into the 3D modeling software and make those structures. It was important to me that the students spend their time learning the neuroanatomy, not learning 3D modeling software. So I chose an online program called Tinkercad, which is fairly straightforward and it's free. And this allows students to use shapes and put them together to make their models. They tend to pick it up pretty quickly. In addition, I have a member of the Teaching Center Open Lab come to my class, and what they do is help students learn how to use Tinkercad initially, and then they come back to help the students refine their models and make them look the way they really want them to. Students start modeling their brain structures with simple parts like these, and they put those together, and then they end up with a final model that looks like this. About halfway through the project, students send a prototype digital model to the Open Lab for printing. So using these physical prototypes, students and I were able to look at the models and understand what was different from what they had intended. And this also helped me understand what their misconceptions were about the brain structures that they were modeling. So for example, I had some students who were modeling a set of brain structures, and some of the images that they had used to model these were not really depicting the parts particularly well. And so by looking at the models, I was able to show them some images that would help them understand what the structures actually looked like. And they were able then to refine their model and make it a much more accurate model. When students reflect at the end of the course about this, they really say that this prototype step was quite important to them. It helped them quite a bit.
So in the beginning, my classmates and I were really nervous about this project since none of us had really done 3D modeling before. But then when the Open Lab came in and Will came and demoed Tinkercad for us, he really made it seem like it was possible. And he showed us how to take organic shapes in order to make real brain structures that we could actually model. And in the end, it actually ended up being really fun and we all loved it. So it was great.
This experiential learning project has been very successful in my course, and I base this on my perspective, looking at what the students are learning, but also on their engagement in this hands-on project. I do plan to continue to use this project in my courses, and I recommend it for any course where students need to extrapolate from 2 dimensions into 3-dimensional structures.